Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is Monday, May 9th, 2022. Let's get started with some space weather. Right now, our solar wind speeds are coming in at 310 even kilometers per second with a density of 7.21, sunspot number of 89. Now we have a sunspot coming around the bend on the northeastern limb. We see most of our action right now across the southern part of the sun, and that is where the bulk of these sunspots are taking place, is in the southern part. But we do see a sunspot possibility coming around the bend over here on the northeastern side, and right now we are sitting at sunspot number 89, but we have 3 active regions that are getting ready to turn away from Earth and no longer be counted as on the daily sunspot number. So with those 3 active groups and that one active region coming around the bend in the northeastern limb, we may still see sunspot number of 89 or even lower is possible as well. Spotless days, well, we're not going to see any more of those. I don't foresee any days without sunspots in the near future, just because where we are in the cycle. And we are definitely upticking towards a maximum. But just because we have seen the amount of X-class flares that we've seen over the past several weeks, and I know we've been AWOL on that stuff, but listen, guys, X-class flares are nothing, especially for this part of the solar cycle. These are very weak X-class flares. Yes, they're dangerous. They can cause harm, but these are so light that they're not really impacting Earth in any major way. They're like a strong M-class flare, basically. That's how weak these X-class flares really are. So instead of going on the air and, repeating the same thing over and over, these X 1.1 class flares, this is typical buildup right now of the cycle and where we're heading towards the cycle maximum. Believe it or not, we're almost halfway through this year, and there'll be another year closer to solar max, which is expected to be somewhere around 2025. Now, at the rate of activity, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw the peak just a little bit sooner than 2025. But also, when you see the peak sooner than expected, that also means a shorter maximum and a deeper decline and a longer decline as well. And solar cycles 23 and 24 have both shown us, 24 and 25 as well, that we are experiencing deeper minimums on each solar cycle. That being said, we are looking at a KP indice of 1 with a 24-hour max of 3. We did get an earthquake today, 6.3 in Papua New Guinea, but again, a 6.3 is pretty common in that area. Am I right? What I'm learning here, what's happening, I think, too, is that I'm getting desensitized from these minor and average earthquakes and volcanoes because I'm aware of what the real dangers are. And I think sometimes we all need to just step back, and we don't have to cover every single eruption and every X-class flare. This is expected. What we're seeing from the sun is still, in my opinion, relatively weak. I mean, we're looking right now at the sun. And I picked this angstrom because I think it displays all of the sunspots right now. But I also think it shows us a weak corona in the sun. You can tell the difference in some areas. We're looking at stronger corona regions, but it is still rather weak. Sunspot numbers are at 89. Again, predictions have been anywhere from 114 to 162. Anything in that range for solar cycle 25 is still below average, which is approximately around 180 to about 220. That's the average solar cycle sunspot number. Right now, we are hitting in the pace of what was expected in solar cycle 24 to repeat itself here in 25. And by the way, the solar physicists that predicted with 97% accuracy, by the way, for solar cycle 24. Can anybody answer that question? The solar physicist who 97% accurately predicted solar cycle 24. I'll go ahead and give you a minute. I'll give you another clue. Her initials. Oh, I just gave it away. It's a her. So come on. We got to have a quick answer here soon, right? If you guys are paying attention, who is it? Come on. I'm looking at the chat right now. No one? Nobody? Anybody? Well, fine. I will let you know. It was Valentina Zarkova. She had a 97% accuracy on prediction of solar cycle 24. And her prediction on solar cycle 25 has been right in line with the majority, I should say, not the majority, but majority of scientists who say that we will see a equal or slightly stronger cycle 25 than we saw on 24. Slightly. And right now, I feel like that we are going to see an even or weaker. I don't think it's going to be a stronger cycle. Comparing the two cycles on the show a few different times, I've shown you guys how we are exactly where we should be for this part of the cycle. And if you ask me, the sun looks kind of dead right now as far as activity. It's kind of calmed down a little bit. And tomorrow, by the next time we go on the air on Wednesday, we'll probably have fewer sunspot numbers to speak of. Maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we get a few that will form right before our eyes, because it's very important to also point out what we're getting ready to see here soon for Earth, and that is a slightly stronger magnetic field, not because the sun is strengthening, but the Earth is entering into the zone where the sun is concentrating all of its efforts at right now, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Here we are at thegrandsolarminimum.com at our space weather section of our page. Check out this orbital pattern right now, this situation we have here in the solar system. So you can see Earth. Let me go ahead and get my handy dandy arrow. This always reminds me of that one show, Bill Cosby, when he had the pen that made the musical noise. I wish I had one of those. Anyway, there is Earth. And Earth is getting ready to orbit its way into this section here where everybody else is at. And we talked about this a few times. But anything that you see in the blue here is going to have a weaker connection to the sun. The reason why it's going to be weaker is because we have the majority of the solar system on one side. Now, there is a magnetic connection to each planet from our star. That can't be denied. And when you have the four gas giants and then some over here, well, that's forcing the sun to concentrate all of its energy towards the group of planets that are in one area. The green lines indicate the stronger electromagnetic connections, and the blue lines represent the almost weak to nothing type of strength. So Earth is getting ready to go into this area where we're going to see lots of connection here from the sun. A little bit more energy will be received, but we will see stronger flares with that too. Thankfully, with a little bit strengthening of a magnetic field, slightly, nothing to in the grand solar minimum, but just because of where we are in the orbit, it's weaker right now, our connection. So it's a good thing we're getting these weak X flares because we have a weaker magnetosphere. When I say we have a stronger magnetosphere on this side of the plane, I'm not saying that we're getting out of a grand solar minimum. It's just a little stronger than what it is over here. With that being said, with that just a little bit stronger, we are going to have a little bit better protection from the sun's solar flares here in the upcoming months. This is going to be something we're going to see for the next 5 to 6 months. We're going to be in this concentrated cluster. So with that being said, we will see bigger solar flares as the year progresses, but we will start to be better protected. And the reason why I know that the magnetic field is starting to strengthen from its minimum is because of the cosmic radiation. All right, and that rate right now is at a 5.9%. That's been the average here lately. And we are seeing the cosmic rays slowly declining to where it's, coming down from very high to now averaging in the 5 to 6% range. This is the indication that the magnetic field is strengthening. The less cosmic radiation that comes into the Earth's atmosphere, the stronger the magnetic field will be. So, in turn, I really believe this, that we will see cosmic radiation rates continuing to level off. But look at how much longer we stayed above 5% compared to the last minimum. The last minimum, we were at 5% cosmic radiation rates, and then we dropped out after 3.5 years back below. So from 2008 to 2011, we had 5% or higher. But from 2017, and it's still 2022, so that's 5 years of cosmic radiation dosage rates of 5% or higher. Another indication that these solar minimums per cycle are getting deeper. And that is why we're seeing less spots. And that's how we can also measure, again, the strength of the magnetic field when we see the amount of cosmic radiation that's coming through our atmosphere. And guys, you've been watching us for a long time. We talk about cosmic rays every show. Every broadcast, we talk about cosmic rays. We talk about the magnetosphere. And you've seen it as the cycle is pulling away from the last minimum, and we are seeing this uptick. Cosmic radiation rates are coming down, but they are not coming down as fast as I think some had thought. When we're still averaging close to 6%, and here we are halfway through, just about halfway through. I shouldn't get too ahead of myself, but still, we're almost in the middle of May, halfway through the year. And cosmic radiation rates are still coming in above 5%. So this is another indication of the deepness of this minimum and the strength of the magnetosphere. The more cosmic rays we see, the weaker the magnetosphere is. The less cosmic rays we see, the stronger the magnetosphere will be. And I'm saying to you folks that part of the reason that we are going to be seeing the cosmic radiation rates dropping is because we are going to be in a part of the solar system where the magnetic connection should be a little bit stronger and enough to help protect against any kind of X flares that should be hurled at us. Because look, I'm not going to act like I'm not seeing it, because I am. I'm seeing the activity, and we are getting to a point where things are starting to get lit. However, again, we have to remember that these X-class 1.1 solar flares are just a strong M-class flare. You're going to need somewhere in the X40, X50, X60 range to cause major problems. And I'm not saying that's not possible, because even NOAA is still calling for a 5% chance of X-class flares. That number is going to relatively stay the same for the next several months. Between 5 and 10% will be the new normal for the chances of X-class flares, only because of where we are in this current solar cycle. Okay, so let's get into tonight's topics. Along with solar cycles, we talk about climate change. Climate change happens naturally. We see solar cycles over and over again. The climate changes during these solar cycles. It's becoming more and more clear that we see the correlation between lower solar activity, colder weather, and when you have colder weather, you know that plant growth is limited. Now, let's talk about this baby formula shortage. And it's worsening due to supply chain and recalls. Now, I'm speculating on the recall. I'm not saying this is a fact. I'm speculating on the recall. The recalls are from babies getting sick from certain types of baby formula, and a few have died, unfortunately. And I don't think that we're dealing with baby formula that wasn't made right. I think the problem is that we are not getting this product off of the boats fast enough. It's going bad. The recall is because the product has been on the shelf too long. Okay? I can tell you from my standpoint upstate New York. Now, I'll show you some pictures that I took at our local Walmart. Look at this. They've got the majority of the baby formula locked up in a plastic case. But this looks just like the article that we're looking at right now. The bare spots, the limited amount of baby formula, and also you guys notice these little signs that are hanging up right here. That is telling the customer 5 per customer, please. But now that number is changed to 3. So the reason why I'm bringing this up, and we're going to get more in depth about these kinds of shortages too in the near future. David Dubine and I have had several conversations about food shortages and everything else, supply chain issues. And he was telling me back in the first week of April that we need to look out for baby formula shortages. And I didn't realize that was the case. The case. So I went and checked out my local supermarket, and I had before pictures I should have shared as well, but the shelves were a lot more fuller than what I just showed you. Check back at the end of the month. David Dubine said you're going to start seeing these shortages by the end of this month. And he was talking in April. A lot of the experts are saying between May and June, but sure enough, I'd say a 70% drop in stock and inventory of baby formula had happened in 3 weeks. So, and like I said, New York just changed their limit to 3 per customer now. A lot of safety concerns here, folks. A lot of you will say, well, the mother should be naturally breastfeeding, and absolutely correct. Some women can't do it. Some women won't do it. I get that, and I'm not here to debate that part. But where this becomes dangerous if a mother doesn't breastfeed is that there are going to be people out there who are going to try to create their own baby formula and alternatives, and it could hurt the baby or make it sick. So this is a big deal because last I checked, and if I'm wrong, please tell me in the chat, but I don't see a natural remedy for baby formula other than breast milk. So this could be the beginning of a crisis, not just a global food shortage, but why are we seeing this baby formula shortage right now? Why is it happening in this department first? And that's really concerning because, we got to take care of our kids. They're important. But why are we seeing problems with, I thought I didn't. Dang nabbit. I meant to share something about the dairy markets because David Dubine and I are also speaking on that. He was telling me that a lot of milk has not been produced this year. They're switching to more like whey powder and protein powder as if they're getting ready for something that needs to be more shelf life friendly. And let's face it, milk goes bad quickly. You get a few weeks out of it, right? Powdered milk stays in your cupboard. Just add water. Yeah, it's not the same, but it'll do. So, and the fact that they're ramping up production of stuff like that makes me feel like that really hard times are on the way. I'm sure everybody has paid attention to the stock market over the last 2 weeks or so. We're starting to see a correction phase, but I think this is necessary, unfortunately, to help inflation. So, in a weird way, the stock market's probably going to have to drop another 5,000 points to help ease the inflation and the cost of goods and how high they've been. But the only problem with that theory is that we are still dealing with places like China who are insisting that they have a zero COVID policy. And one case positive warrants the quarantine of millions of citizens and shutdowns of major ports all over China. Fox Business News was talking about how a boat that used to bring you the goods that you need is now taking 74 more days than it should compared to what I don't know. I think it was like a week or two. Now we're talking 74 days. So we're seeing things coming in later. And And this has nothing to do with even crop issues, folks. This is just supply issue we're still dealing with. The supply issue with another issue we're having, not just China shutting down their ports, but our truck drivers throughout the United States. They're losing their jobs because the federal government can't get on board with what some states have legalized marijuana for medical or recreational use. So the government is firing these truck drivers because ODOT still Schedule 1 drug is cannabis. So in a time where we have shortage of workers, shortage of dock workers, shortage of drivers, shortage of ports being unloaded, now we're losing thousands, tens of thousands of drivers because of the confusion of cannabis laws across the country. It's like this was done on purpose to create chaos and confusion. What's scary about all this, guys, is that this isn't even part of the Grand Solar Minimum effort yet. We're dealing with something that has nothing to do with the climate stuff. That's only getting started right now. The big thing that we have to worry about is these prices for the farmers. Now, everybody sits there and they say, well, you know, the farmers will put in for a request for help and they'll get the help. And listen, the farmers are barely getting anything covered here. Some of them have to go back into some of their savings and pay bills because they can't get a profit off of the yields that they're producing. Over the last couple of years, let's face it, crop industry has not been what it used to be. Now, we have fertilizer prices that are going through the roof. And it's not just in the regular areas of farming in the mid-city. No, this is a guy here near Albany, New York, complaining about how much. Now, the cost of fertilizer was higher, but the Russian invasion of Ukraine has exacerbated the situation. That's what they say. Russia and Ukraine previously exported nearly 30% of nitrogen and phosphorus, and Russia and Belarus exported about 40% of the world's supply. Russia has been hit by sanctions, and much of Ukraine's industrial areas are in ruins. In other words, there's no plant in Ukraine this year. Russia is blaming sanctions for banning deliveries of fertilizer. Or at least the government thinks they're hurting the country, but President Biden doesn't understand that he is choking out his own people. The whole war thing, guys, to me is ridiculous that we're standing here on the sidelines believing that we're allowing a major country to go in and invade another country that's not even anywhere near the size of Russia, and somehow that little country is winning. We're not stupid. The media is just not reporting what's really happening over there. That's all. So all the blame about this, this being the problem of prices of fertilizer and fuels because of the war. No, it's not the war. It's the world governments that are in that Paris Treaty climate that are routing together and trying to ban fossil fuels. That raises the cost of oil and other natural resources that we use for energy right now because it's becoming scarce. Cutting off the fertilizer exports, it's not it's not a smart sanction. Let's just put it that way, folks. A lot of people aren't planting this year. Don't listen to the AGW side in the mainstream media who would say everything's fine. No, it's not fine. There's a lot of farmers out there who are not planting this year because it does not make fiscal sense. And then you got the food plant fires rumors. And of course, Tucker did a little piece on it here. I'm not going to get into that, but there is a lot of speculation now, folks. The numbers are starting to go up in the area of, is this real? I've heard a dozen. I've heard up to 28 food plants have been destroyed by fires. Now, two things. One, the first thing could be insurance jobs. They see what's coming. We're experiencing late plant in Nebraska and Idaho. I'm sorry, not Idaho. Iowa, South Dakota, North Dakota, Minnesota. We're having issues there weather-wise. and temperature-wise. Oh, sorry about that. So with the late plant and the food processing plants being destroyed, or so-called mysteriously being burned down, insurance job would be, because the crop seasons in a lot of these states are going to be pathetic. Our good friend Matt Brose, who is a farmer out in southern Nebraska, he expects 20 to 30 bushels compared to the past where he was looking at 170 some bushels. That's the drastic reality of what he's looking at for his harvest. So he's looking at maybe 15, 20% of his crop this year. It's a loss already, guys. It's a loss. And it hasn't even begun. And a lot of farmers like Matt are facing these issues. So the big guy might be able to get a big government bailout, but what about the smaller farmers? The food situation doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand why food plants and birds are being destroyed, and we're witnessing food shortages. We're also seeing price hikes, too, from the brick and mortar stores now. They used to be our friends. Now they're hiking up the prices. So what could cause world governments to want to keep, tightening the noose? Farmers seek relief from soaring fuel prices, supply shortages. Again, diesel. Let's look at the national averages, folks. This is awful. Gas prices across the country are absolutely horrid. Diesel, the average price for diesel is $5.54, folks. Sitting at $103 a barrel on the market. It was down $7 a day, believe it or not. But we're over $100 a barrel right now. Again, don't blame Ukraine and Russia. Blame these governments that have this Paris Treaty climate. They're trying to ban oil and other fossil fuels. And when you're making something scarce, it becomes more valuable and the demand goes through the roof. And that's what exactly we are seeing right now. These gas prices have nothing to do with Ukraine. This is all about these people fast-forwarding, accelerating Agenda 2030. I know you're probably thinking, oh, he's finally done it. He's fallen in that hole. But I'm telling you right now, guys, they're starving us out. And they're starting it with the baby formula. And then it goes to meat prices going through the roof where people can't afford meat. I got a steaks this weekend for Mother's Day at $21 a pop. $21 a steak. Now, these were good-sized steaks, but still, I've never seen us spend $60, $80 on steaks. Wow. So, here we are, looking at food shortages, looking at baby formula shortages, looking at crop loss, looking at fuel prices and energy prices soaring because world governments want to implement a Green New Deal. So what does it make sense? We all know what's coming, right? We all are aware of that cold or cooler climate will in fact limit growth. Limit growth because of cooling. Not because of global warming. Not because it's too hot and there's too much CO2 in the air and there's a drought. No, we're not the whole world is facing a drought first and foremost. The center part of the country always has a dry season. In fact, they're always in a dry. The west and the southwest and the middle part, that's not unusual anymore. U.S. utility and I sourced to delay coal plant shutdown due to solar market freeze. There's a solar market freeze. Why? Because it's not working. And these subsidies and these tax credits from these solar companies, they're going to stop. And then they're going to see the true face of the cost of energy from solar and wind. And let's not even get into how dangerous the mining is for the solar panels, and how awful that people are to get this material for these particular. Hold on a second. All right. So, as I was saying, some of these countries like Africa who have slave labor, these camps that mine this stuff for hours and hours and hours for nothing or little pay at all. And then what? 7 to 10 years, it gets thrown in a field somewhere. You can't melt it down. It's harmful to the environment. Well, it's still harmful to the environment to be stored in a landfill somewhere too. It's just, look, guys, it's simple. They're choking us out. On top of the fact that we're dealing with a grand solar minimum, I feel like we're looking at a situation where they're trying to maximize the population loss to help change the climate. Instead of blaming, on the outside, they're blaming human activity. But the plan looks like that it is not just about human activity like CO2 from factories and cars. They are saying that human life itself could be causing climate change. Think about it. 8.1 billion people on the planet, full of life, full of CO2 and emitting CO2. Compared to where we were 150 years ago, we were 7 billion less. Temperatures were slightly cooler back then, slightly. But there was a brief warming period, not like what the exaggerated amount that we saw from the AGW and the Michael Manns of the world. It's exaggerated because they're trying to transition their economy and trying to squeeze out the last bit of money they can, the elites, I'm saying, the world governments, right before the real crisis happens. We haven't seen anything yet, folks. This is just the beginning. We're at the very tip of the iceberg, so to speak. We are expecting a Maunder-like minimum in the near future. Not a Dalton, not a Glassberg, but this is a grand cycle. And during a grand cycle, Maunder minimum, we saw famine, crop loss, snow, ice, you name it, in places that we shouldn't have seen it. We got snow and ice today. I can't remember. Oh boy, it was. But again, for May, it was unreal. I know Finland's seen some snow for May. So ice is still growing. Or I'm sorry, it's receding now in the Arctic, but we are still seeing a lot more of it in the Arctic compared to where we were back in 2016 when we were at the peak and the ending of the modern warming period. And in 2016 is where I believe we started to see the gradual decline in global temperatures. Let's take a little look at our forecast here for the next several days. There's that little low pressure spinning off the coast of the East Coast. It's driving down southward. Kind of stalls out a bit, but then it looks like it wants to make landfall somewhere in the Carolinas, but quickly disintegrates and becomes disorganized, and it's just going to be a tropical depression, but it's going to bring lots of rain to the Carolinas and into this weekend. It's going to be what was a beautiful weekend for many of us here in the Northeast. That will not be the case by the end of the weekend. Next weekend, there's a lot of rain that's going to sit off the Atlantic Ocean, and finally, high pressure will push this system off, but things are staying quite mild and warm here for much of the United States. It looks like the wettest of the U.S. is going to be the Northeast, the Northwest, and possibly in the Northern Plains. Good news for South Dakota, bad news for Nebraska. Folks in Kansas finally seeing a shot of heavy rain in the middle of May, towards the end of May. But our friends like Matt in Nebraska, he got zero moisture in the month of April. He got 1.5 inches of rain at the beginning of May. So far, this forecast is not revealing any moisture heading towards his way. So we are, like I said, not so great. Now, there's high pressure churning out here in the middle Atlantic. And that is what's keeping these systems from forming into hurricanes along the Atlantic side. But then look out, high pressure disappears, or indicates it will disappear by the end of May, May 25th. Again, we'll be watching the Carolinas. If that high pressure does disappear, this might be our first system of the year, and a May hurricane would not be out of the question. Now, and the reason why I'm going to say this, especially in this region right here, not so much in the Northeast. I'm not worried about a hurricane up here. The waters are just still too cold up here in the North Atlantic. Possibly warm enough to sustain maybe a Cat 1. Maybe. But the majority of our storms, because of what we've been in for the last 3 years, is a La Nina. We're going to see the majority of those storms hanging out in the Atlantic just like we are right now in this extended forecast. The two storms that we have on the East Coast are not going to be hurricanes for the sheer fact that the wind shear situation is what keeps these storms in the Atlantic Ocean forming because of the lack of wind shear that affects these storms. Check out the temperatures across the United States, getting warmer here across the Midwest into the Northeast. Beautiful weather here by May 12th for half the country, if not 60%. The Northwest, well, it's still kind of April-ish in the Northwest when we're talking about Oregon and Washington, Idaho, and parts of Montana. Northwestern parts of North Dakota as well, still only in the mid-50s by May 12th. That heat's going to stick around. A cold front's going to try to make its way across the Midwest, but it's not really going to disrupt this warm weather pattern that we are seeing setting up for the country here across the United States. So we are starting to see temperatures beginning to cooperate as far as what we need for planting and crops to grow. A little bit cooler towards the middle part of for May in the Northeast and the Ohio Valley. Temperatures in the 80s will be only a highs in the 59 region by May 18th. But that quickly changes. Wednesday, May 18th, and moving forward, boy, we're starting to see triple-digit heat. And it's only May 19th across Texas and the far south. Now, I want to stop here real quick because we need to talk about what we're expecting this summer so nobody freaks out. Because of the dry conditions that we are seeing right now in Kansas, Nebraska, parts of Oklahoma, it is not going to be unusual to see this area right here continue to be the bullseye for the drought. And I mean severe drought is possible for this area that I'm circling right here. Along with that, we could see some extreme heat. It would not surprise me to see some heat records broken in this region this summer. With that being said, expect shots of cooler weather here in the Northwest and the Northeast at times, but not as consistent as it will be in the Northwest. Pacific Ocean temperatures have recorded its coldest temperatures in April ever. So we are seeing the effects of the cooler oceans. And you say, well, how's that? Well, let me show you. This is the La Nina 3-4 region. This is where we find out if we're going to be an El Nino or La Nina. El Nino, we got to see conditions at 0.05 for a certain period of time. As you can see, we are nowhere near that. And we're heading into the summer at a steady 1 degree below baseline. Indications that are also telling us that we are going to see a third consecutive winter for a La Nina. These temperatures here in the Nino 1-2 region also tell us that La Nina is not going anywhere. In fact, we thought maybe the 1-2 region would start pumping warmer waters into the 3-4 right around mid-March, but has since plummeted below the levels that we saw in February and are just hanging out below those levels. We are close to 2 degrees below baseline in the Nino 1-2 region, and that is off of the western side of South America going towards Hawaii and that region. So with all this cooler water action going around, The North Atlantic, look at this. This is the Atlantic MDR anomaly minus global tropics, and it's below baseline right now in the month of May. And it's been a steady decline. It's starting to rebound a little bit, and it should. We are getting to that point of the year where it's going to be a lot warmer. But, folks, again, this is a typical May pattern right now. I don't see anything extreme in the highs or the lows at all. Maybe some cooler weather for the Northwest a lot longer, but right now spring looks like it's going to be pretty normal across most of the United States here in May, if at least at average. A couple of days could be above average, but not enough to cause any concerns of global warming of any kind. In fact, this is what May 25th temperatures look like. The southern part of the United States is hot. The northern part is cool. 60 degrees in Wyoming and parts of Colorado. 62 in northern parts of Illinois in May. 59 degrees in Pittsburgh in the late May. So, again, I talked to somebody who, online from Germany, who thinks that we are going to see a very inconsistent summer of heat, cooler weather, wet, dry, everything, but it's not going to stay consistent for any long periods of time. So, see a few people in the chat talking about potatoes and buying, stepping up the buying of food for your homes. Guys, I'm not suggesting any panic buying, but it wouldn't hurt to get a little extra each time you go to the market. Spend about $10-20 more than you usually would and get a couple of extra things that are going to have a good shelf life. Again, I'm not saying go out there and panic buy, because the other solution that we have to have as well is growing and canning, preserving. That's another trait that a lot of us don't know anything about. I am slowly learning, but we better kick it in high gear, because with everything that's happening right now, with food prices, the stock market, it's all tied together. And unfortunately, we're being told that the grand solar minimum has no impact on anything like what we're seeing right now. And it's only the tip of the GSM. The other side of this, Agenda 2030. We have to watch out for what is coming. When you see the UN and the WEF partnering together and stating that they are accelerating efforts to achieve Agenda 2030. Folks, we got a lot more content to go over here this week. We hope you stay tuned. Want to say hello to Jesse Vorwald, I should say, our favorite Wisconsin farmer. Good to see you out there. Judy from Dow's Homestead. Hello. Patricia Clayton, also saw her in there. Hello to my lovely wife, Mari, as well. Jerome from New York. Good to see you out there. Pizza Hut as well. Many others. Knife Collector. DKTK. I saw Bugsy in there. Good to see you out here as well. Kansas Terry. Marcelo, thank you for tuning in as well. Eli, the Wolverine State. Good to see you on board tonight as well. AC, lots of new faces out there and old faces. Again, guys, we appreciate your support as always, because if it wasn't for you guys, we would not exist, period. I want to thank all of our new Patreon subscribers. Also, we want to start encouraging folks to not only check out our Patreon, but we need a backup for the Patreon too. We're being told that there might be some content that gets us kicked off because of how things have been lately. So I haven't been adding a lot of content or links to Patreon trying to protect the channel. However, Subscribestar is another platform that we are a part of as well. We'd like to build that platform up as well. So consider us on Subscribestar becoming a member, but also consider us to becoming a member on the Patreon channel for just $1. That's it, folks. Just $1. That's all we need to keep this puppy going here, and we will continue to bring you the best grand solar minimum news and climate-related news out there on the internet. All right, folks, that's going to do it for me tonight. Thanks for tuning in once again. And again, be safe out there. We will talk soon.